Most of us have a very specific movie playing in our heads when we hear the word revelation. We picture fire raining from the sky. We picture multi-headed dragons rising out of the ocean. We picture a barcode tattooed on a forehead and a terrifying countdown clock ticking toward the end of the world. For centuries, this book has been treated like a horror movie script or a cryptic puzzle that predicts World War III. It scares people. It scares people so much that they just stop reading it. But here is the problem. That entire framework, the fear, the doom, the obsession with the future is likely completely wrong. What if I told you that the most terrifying symbols in the Bible weren't written to scare you, but to comfort people who are already living through a nightmare? Today, we are going to look past the monsters to find the literary genius hidden underneath. We are unlocking 3 specific secrets about the book of Revelation that most people skim right over, secrets that transform this book from a roadmap of doom into a radical manifesto of hope. Let's start with the most famous number in human history. 6. 6. 6. You see it on bumper stickers, heavy metal albums, and in conspiracy theories about microchips. Culturally, we have been trained to view 666 as a futuristic identification tag for the Antichrist. We think it's a prediction of a single evil dictator who will rise up in the 21st century. But if you take a time machine back to the 1st century, to the actual people receiving this letter, they wouldn't be thinking about microchips. They would be thinking about math. Specifically, a kind of math called gematria. See, in the ancient world, they didn't have separate symbols for numbers like we do. They used letters. Every letter in the alphabet had a numerical value. An A might be 1, a B might be 2. This meant that every single word and every single name had a number. So when the author, John, writes, "Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast," he isn't being mystical. He is literally asking them to do the math. He is giving them a riddle. Why? Because he is a prisoner. He is writing about the most powerful, violent man in the world, and he can't just write his name down or he will be executed. So he uses a code. If you take the Greek title Neron Caesar, Nero Caesar, and you spell it using Hebrew letters, you get a sum. And that sum is exactly 666 to the early Christians. This wasn't a riddle about the distant future. It was a political cartoon about their present reality. Nero was the emperor who dipped Christians in tar and set them on fire to light his garden parties. He was the beast. And the number 666 wasn't just his name, it was a theological insult. In the Bible, 7 is the number of perfection. It is God's number. 6 is the number of humanity created on the 6th day, always falling short of perfection. So 666 is a trinity of imperfection. It is man trying to be God, over and over and over again, and failing every time. The mark of the beast wasn't a physical tattoo, it was a symbol of allegiance. It was the choice to say Caesar is Lord to save your own skin, or to stay faithful to Jesus and face the consequences. Once you realize 666 is about Rome, the rest of the book starts to look different. This brings us to the second secret, which changes how we read the terrifying 7 seals. In the movies, the opening of the 7 seals is like a linear doomsday clock. Seal 1 opens disaster. Seal 2, war. Seal 3, famine. We tend to read this chronologically, frantically trying to match each seal to a headline on the news today. But this misses the visual language John is using. The word apocalypse in Greek doesn't mean the end of the world. It means the unveiling. It means pulling back a curtain to show you what is actually in the room. When the Lamb Jesus opens these seals, he isn't necessarily triggering new events. He is pulling back the curtain on human history. Look at the four horsemen: a white horse for conquest, a red horse for war, a black horse for economic injustice, a pale horse for death. If you were a Christian living in the Roman Empire, you didn't need a prophecy to tell you about these things. You saw them every time you looked out your window. Rome was built on conquest. Rome was sustained by war. Rome was famous for economic exploitation, where the rich got richer and the poor starved. These seals weren't a prediction of the future. They were a diagnosis of the present. John is showing them that this chaos isn't random. By having the Lamb open the seals, the book is making a massive, subversive claim. God is sovereign even over the chaos. He isn't surprised by the war. He isn't surprised by the famine. The seals reveal that while the empire looks invincible, it is actually eating itself alive. And God is allowing these consequences to play out. It shifts the genre from a future horror story to a present-day comfort. It tells the reader, I know it looks like Rome has won. I know it looks like evil is unchecked. But the Lamb is the one holding the scroll. The Lamb is the one allowing the seals to break. And this leads us directly to the third secret, which explains exactly who the enemy really is. We have to talk about the beasts. In Revelation 13, we see a beast rising out of the sea and another rising out of the earth. Again, science fiction has taught us to look for literal monsters or maybe a specific person. But John is doing something much smarter here. He is remixing ancient imagery. He is taking the four beasts from the book of Daniel, which represented the empires of Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, and he is mashing them all together into one super beast. This is John's way of saying that Rome is the culmination of every evil empire that came before it. But look closely at the second beast, the one that rises from the earth. It says, this beast makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. It performs signs. It controls buying and selling. This isn't a monster. It's a system. Historians call this the imperial cult. In the first century, there was a massive religious and economic machine dedicated to worshiping the emperor. There were priests who enforced patriotism. There were guilds that you couldn't join unless you offered a sacrifice to Caesar. If you didn't play the game, you didn't eat. You couldn't buy or sell. The beast wasn't just a person. It was the entire political, military, and economic engine of the Roman Empire that demanded total loyalty. It was the system that said, profit and power are more important than human life. When John depicts these beasts, he is unmasking the state. He is telling his readers, I know they call it the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, but I am showing you the truth. It is a beast. It is a monster fueled by the dragon, Satan himself. So when you put these three secrets together, the picture changes completely. The book isn't a riddle to be solved about the 21st century. It is a resistance manual for the first century that applies to every century. 666 is the warning against worshiping human power. The seals are the promise that God is in control of history, even when it hurts. The beasts are the unveiling of corrupt political systems. Suddenly, Revelation isn't about fear. It is about the ultimate victory of the Lamb. It's a story where the most powerful empire in the world, with all its armies and wealth, is defeated not by a bigger army, but by a bleeding, sacrificial lamb. It tells us that no matter how dark the world gets, no matter how powerful the beast looks on the news tonight, the story has already been written. The Lamb wins. And that is a secret worth noticing.